Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're a couple of minutes late. We had our city, what do you call it? State of the City a while ago. We went over a little bit. So we're going to start our February the 5th meeting tonight. We're going to have invocation, I'll lead that. Pledge of Allegiance by John Grogan. Then we'll have roll call. Let's stand, please. Our Heavenly Father, we're here tonight to have our meeting and hope that everybody understands that we're all here together to work together to move forward with the city. We want everybody to know that we think of them and hope that they're safe and sound. We pray that you will look after our firemen and our police officers and anybody in our public safety departments that are there out and serving us in our city. And hope that they understand that our armed forces also are out there watching over our city, our country, and we appreciate them very much. So in the name of God, I say amen. Thank you.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Grogan?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Firstner?
Here.
Commissioner Oliver?
Here.
All right. Presentations. We're going to have a presentation. I'm going to read proclamation for Black History Month, and then I'll have all the commissioners go down front and we'll take a picture. All right. Proclamation. Whereas in 1976, Black History Month was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of Black history throughout our American experiences. And whereas the history of people of American heritage goes back thousands of years and includes some of the greatest, most advanced, and innovative societies in the history of human existence that we can all draw inspiration from. And whereas from the early days of the pioneers to our present day leaders, African Americans have played a significant role in the history of Florida State, economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas Black History Month is a time for all Americans to remember the stories and teaching of those who helped build our nation, took a stance against prejudice to build lives of dignity and opportunity, advance the causes of civil rights, and strengthen families and communities. And whereas during Black History Month, all Americans are encouraged to reflect on past successes and challenges of African Americans and look to the future to continue to improve society so that we live up to the ideals of freedom, equity, and justice. Now, therefore, the City Commission of the City of Ocoee does hereby declare the month of February 2019 as Black History Month. So let's go down front and take a picture. Now, I want the city staff to hang this in the lobby for a month. All right, we're at the part where it's comments from citizens and public. Now, I have a, well, one's for item 14, so that'll wait. All right, on item number, Mr. Batson, will you come up to the agenda, please? Give us your name and address, please. We have a 3-minute time thing. Yes, sir, right up on where it says public up there.
Good evening. My name is Bernard Batson. I've been an employee of Orange County government for almost 28 years, and I'm here this evening by invitation from Commissioner Oliver I emailed a letter to Commissioner Oliver on January the 4th asking if the city of Ocoee would support our 17th annual Black History Month Scholarship Gala. This event is put on by current and former employees of Orange County government, and over the last 16 years, we've contributed over $350,000 in scholarships for economically disadvantaged African American students to attend a college or university in the state of Florida. Those schools are Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Edward Waters College in Jacksonville, Florida, Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida Memorial University in Miami, Rollins College in Winter Park, University of Central Florida, and Valencia College. And we would greatly appreciate your support. And I have the letter, a copy for the 6 commissioners, the letter that was emailed to Commissioner Oliver on January the 4th. And with this gala that we have various levels of sponsorship. So the support that we get from the city of Ocoee would be greatly appreciated. And the scholarships are open to any student, economically disadvantaged African American student who graduates from any Orange County public high school or any high school under the jurisdiction of Orange County Public Schools. And like we've been doing this for quite some time, and we've made a significant difference in our community. Some of our past speakers have included actor Hill Harper, Judge Greg Mathis, Judge Lynn Toler. Last year's speaker was Dr. Myron Rowe. Dr. Rowe played varsity football at Florida State University. He was also a Rhodes Scholar. He studied in a year at Oxford University. He came back and played in the National Football League with the Tennessee Titans and Pittsburgh Steelers, and he left football, and he's studying now to be a neurosurgeon at Harvard Medical School. And this year's speaker will be actor Jeffrey Owens, who played Bill Cosby's son-in-law on the Cosby Show. You may remember that he was recently on social media because when his acting career hit a low point, he took a job at Trader Joe's. And our theme for this year is a triumphant journey with dignity and grace. And I think that best describes the African American experience in this country and throughout the world. And I would like to leave this flyer, and I have a big one and a smaller one.
Leave it with our city clerk,
And
please.
a letter for each commission.
Okay, thank you. All right, does any commissioners want to make a comment?
I think that when we look at the county as a whole, being our community, I think that we have a responsibility toward our youth in any way that we possibly can. So I think that there should be some consideration as to supporting this organization and their plight to provide scholarships to underprivileged youth in Orange County.
Mr. Wilson.
Okay. I know that I haven't, again, Commissioner Oliver, I haven't seen anything. I know you got a letter. I'm assuming no one else has seen anything because I haven't seen it either, because usually we go to all of us. I think that we need to look at a new approach at this point, because we are getting a lot of requests for funding. And I'm not saying about this program itself, but I believe that I think we as a commission need to review this, and that we no longer have the CMA awards. That I tend to would like things, if anyone's going to come requesting funds, I would tend to like some information, if even a month before they come for anything, because again, I'd like to review it. We have to be good stewards of the city's funds, and I want to make sure that whatever is happening is affecting our residents here. So I'd like this to, again, maybe be put on a future agenda, because I do think we get approached, but we really sometimes don't understand or have a full, in 3 minutes, have an idea of what the item that's being asked for. And giving us an opportunity to review it would help me immensely.
What?
That's in general, I'm just saying that because I I don't know anything about this program. I'm sorry, sir. I don't know anything really about your program except what you just said. And I do like to review things and look at what we're spending our money on. And so it would be very helpful, I think, in the future for me to have at least a month's notice on a lot of funding so I could look at and see how it's going to affect our residents, the effect it's going to have on our residents.
Pull your mic up, Commissioner Grover.
I kind of tend to agree with that, and I would also like to make even a step forward to maybe go back to fund another Merits Awards Board, and we can allow the citizens, have them to have that done once a year, twice a year, and let the citizens on that board pick. That way they can go through the process and they can do all the picking for the awards. I think that worked out well before, where we're not approached every single meeting for 2 minutes, 3 minutes to try to determine whether we're gonna fund some money. And then that's the citizen speaking also.
Anybody else? I'll say that it seems to be every week somebody's coming in now. And we got into this discussion back during the budget time, and Commissioner Wilson's right. It was said that we weren't gonna do that. And the other thing is, it's supposed to be some organization in our city that comes to us for that. And we did one just the other night for, that Orlando 500, I think it was $500. But we need this where it comes in earlier. If you had the letter, I don't know, I never seen the letter, so I hadn't seen it, so I'm with them. I think we have to kind of go control how we do that, dev that out. We're starting a fund for youth where we have a youth program, which is gonna have a total of $20,000 involved in that. So we've got to come up to where we're gonna do and what we're gonna do with our funding, so I'm with them, so I think we need to have them bring it earlier, send us the letter earlier, or send it through the process, through our staff. Somebody in the staff can bring it to us and let us see it, so.
When is this event? I'm sorry. It's February 23rd. Okay.
So does anybody else have any comments?
Well, I tend to agree with the idea of coming up with a process to be able to look at these things in advance. So I do agree with you in that regard. And I think that moving forward, we should adopt some type of program to look at these things in advance and figure out a way that we can at least have knowledge of these programs before they come to this commission.
I think there's another way we can look at it too, Commissioner Wilson and Commissioner Grogan, is in budget time, and maybe even, and I know some of the departments in Orlando do it, some of the different cities do it. We can talk to Rob, city manager, maybe each one has a little bit of discretionary money that you can, if it's a small amount, not a big amount, Rob, that you can, if you got a program like this, you wanna give out of your discretionary fund, $500, fine. That way you got it. If you wanna give it to somebody in your neighborhood that has to have it, or some church, then in the city, it all goes to where it's the citizens of the city of Ocoee. We've mainly got to look at it. If he has a person that's on that list of his from the city, I'd like to see it, because then we look at that in a different order. But I think we do that at budget time. We go to a process where we can have a small discretionary fund that you can give somebody in your district. If they have some problem or some need, that we can go after that and look at that. And it's your approval to do up to that amount. When you're out of that amount, you're out. Yep. So I don't think we have a motion tonight, sir, so unless you're gonna make a motion, but I don't know if anybody's gonna, you can make the motion, but I don't know what we're gonna do.
I think we need to probably look at it.
It's not nothing against the organization, it's just that I will tell you that if you go to Winter Garden, Florida, and ask Winter Garden to get any money out of them, they will not donate money at their commission meetings. They will not do it. I'm not trying to say we've done it forever, but we've got to come to a control where we control it more. And I still think in the budget process, and I don't know why I never thought of that, we can sit down and work a deal where we can each have our own little fund, and we can do that, Rob.
Yeah, well,
And not a lot of, no crazy money.
Well,
But I know Orange County does it, but they're on a bigger scale than we are. Orange County does it. I know they give away a lot of money out there.
that was my initial conversation. We talked about that. He thought that we did have a discretionary fund. I explained that we don't have that in place, that you would have to come before the commission to actually make a proposal. So that was my response to the request, the initial request. There was also something that we talked about earlier last year, but we just
Yeah.
never got to that point
We'll
for the
put that,
workshop
I'll
to
make
do
sure,
something
Rob,
like
we
that.
put that down. You could probably call our salaries discretionary. We don't make that much. Probably call it discretionary. All right, so apologize for that. So no motion made, we'll move on. All right. Anybody else anybody else from the audience have any comments on anything that's not on the agenda? All right. We're gonna move to staff reports.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor.
All right. Commissioners' announcements. Commissioner Oliver.
Nothing at this point.
Commissioner Firstman.
Not at this time.
Commissioner Wilson.
I just have one item, I'd just like to mention that I'd like to pull item number 4, for discussion on the consent agenda, please. Thank you. Nothing right there.
We'll pull item 4 and discuss that first, and then anybody have anything else on the consent agenda? Huh?
No.
You got, and then any comments?
No.
All right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and vote on the consent agenda with everything besides item 4. We're gonna pull item 4 and discuss it, and then we can vote on it afterwards. Do I hear a motion to approve the other items on consent agenda?
Motion approved.
Motion made by Commissioner Oliver, seconded by Commissioner Wilson. No more comments, let's vote. Motion carries unanimously. All right, item 4, Commissioner Wilson.
Yes, I just have a question. As being good stewards of the money, when I see that $10,000 for a transportation flyer, I don't know who is involved in that, but I don't like when I see $10,000 on cost of printing and mailing when we become to an era of texting, and not that texting is the way you do it, but we have a water bill, we have.
Correct, yeah.
We have the website, we have, Joy puts out a blast. I just wonder if we're using money effectively at $10,000.
The $10,000 would be a not to exceed, and obviously would not be a goal, and it would give us options. Some people's, some ways would be through social media. There is an option in several different ways of providing it via mail, either in the utility bill. It just gives us options, but it's certainly not a goal that we strive to achieve. It just gives us some not to exceed leeway.
This was the whole city, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I just hate that $10,000 number.
$10,000, I mean,
That could
I
be,
think-
that could be our fund.
I think there's not a way to put it on our TV, that it run on TV.
Yes, we put it on
and announce
social
it, and
media and
we're
TV.
gonna have it
yes.
running on TV, because if anybody's in the city and it's in that, they have that TV, they're gonna get that channel,
Our water bill.
or water bills.
I just wonder if that's other options,
Yeah.
because I just have a problem when I see 10
Yeah, I do
grand.
too. I have a problem not do you care about putting it in the water bill?
I don't have a problem, what's the cost average to put it in water bill?
Well, the only thing to consider with the water bill is we do have, I think, some customers that we don't provide water to. We do provide water and wastewater to some customers, water and then reuse water. There is a certain area of the city, so if you're gonna do something like that, you'd probably have to decide, what do we do with those residents that don't receive a bill from us every month? And would that be a special mailing, or would that be something where you want to direct them to the website
many would
or
that be?
something like that?
Do you think? I mean, not 10,000 worth.
Can you research that and bring it back to us
Yes.
at the next
Yes.
meeting?
Yeah, we can do that.
I mean, is there any
I got a-
urgency?
I have a question.
Is this worthy for a presentation, like what we did to the downtown development?
Certainly, we'll be happy to do a presentation.
Well, that brings up an idea I had that I was gonna talk at the end of the meeting about, and it could come into the presentation time. I'm looking for options, instead of spending even up to 10,000. I mean, if you said 1,000, I might say, okay, but, because I know mailing is expensive, but when you start getting that high, I think of many other things I wanna spend 10 grand on in the city.
Yes.
So we're looking at other options to either cut down to that 10,000 to 0 if possible. But
I like that number.
looking at things like social media, the use of social media, where you can reach out to tens of thousands of people through Facebook, Instagram, and different social media outlets. Is that a possibility to be able to use those social media outlets to get this type of information out and give them some type of maybe visual as to what's going on with the city, with the traffic in the city? Is that a possibility?
Yes, it is. And we can also make it into a handy pocket guide that we could provide to everyone that they could hand out at homeowners association meetings and what other group meetings you have. But yes, certainly.
Well, when I used to go around, when I was a few years ago, when I first got in mayor, I went around to the homeowner associations and give them out that information. So each one of us that go, and more than the commissioners that go to your homeowner association meetings, we take these and then you take them there and give them out. That's what we did. I've taken you before. So we go to these homeowner meetings and give them out there. That way we don't have to spend $10,000. So,
We can just take
and
it.
then leave them with the homeowner association. They can post them on their line, they all have computer things that run around their neighborhood, so we could post it. That way we save the money.
Yeah,
So I'd like to look at both ways if we could. That way we
And,
can
and
spend-
also, if we have to mail out any of them, would it be, is there any special programs through the post office that we would get discounted
You
rates
get-
to
you
be
get
able to
a
send those
nonprofit rate.
things out?
You get a nonprofit rate. It's not a nonprofit, but it's political, they call it political. It's just like when you mail out a mailer when you're running for a campaign, you get the same rate as first class. You get the same mail rate. You don't pay the mail rate, you pay the bulk rate, but you get the same priority mail. Because I found that out, I was a mailman.
Okay.
You get the same, you get priority mail service.
I was actually reading about another program where they have every direct mailer would be pennies on a dollar. But again, if we actually had to mail some out, there may be other programs out there. When was the last time you were a mailman? It was about, what, 30, 40 years ago?
No, not that long. It's been long enough, though, I'm glad of it. But no,
Well, there may be
I
other
just
programs
think,
if we have to mail
honestly,
any of them out.
Personally, I think it's a great way to do it, is go to those homeowner meetings and hand them that paper and leave some with them, and then also have them post it on their community, building, and also put it on their online through their homeowner association groups. I think that's a better way to do it. I think we might mail something to them. I know a lot of people just open them up and throw it in the trash can. So I think we need to look at 2 or 3 ways to do it, so.
We would
Great
like a
idea.
presentation. I would like to see a presentation on it.
Yeah, yeah. Next meeting?
Well, for the next meeting, it's only going to be a few days of staff time, so maybe first meeting in March?
Meeting after, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Thank you. Do we need to do something with that item?
Yeah, I was going to suggest you
We
you
just-
vote on that
we-
issue.
We just, what do you mean? We can make the motion to bring it back in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Second.
bring back.
First meeting in March?
Okay.
First meeting in
We'll bring it
March. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson to bring it back, item 4 on the consent agenda, and the first meeting in March, which is what?
The 5th,
5th of March. Do I hear a second?
second.
Seconded by Commissioner Grogan. Let's vote. All right, bring us back a report on it, different ways to do it. All right. All right, now we can move along to public hearings. Arden Park, item number 11, Arden Park Phase 4A, large-scale preliminary and final site plan. City Planner Room.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, for the record, Mike Rimmer, City Planner. This is further development of the Arden Park PUD subdivision. If you recall, Arden Park is in multiple phases, with Phase 1 was on the south side of Ocoee Road. Phase 2, 3 are presently under construction, actually building homes in 2, and they just finished up Phase 3 with an additional clubhouse. The developer is looking to move to the next phase, which would be Phase 4. I have it highlighted here. The overall PUD is located, north and south of Ocoee Road, east of Ingram Road. This is, you can see Phase 4. I will be bringing back at a future commission date in March, actually the final build-out of Arden Park, except for the 15 acres that's still set aside possibility for Orange County Public Schools to purchase. But before you today is just Phase 4A, which is interior to the subdivision, doesn't have any new access points. The Phase 4A consists of approximately 90 additional single-family homes ranging in from 46 feet by 120 and 55 feet by 120 and 65 feet wide by 120 deep. You're approving the preliminary and final subdivision plan. So the next step after this is getting the plans certified for construction and breaking ground. The developer plans to continue as they finish up phase 3, just move the equipment and start working on phase 4, then finish all the way around. We will have the subdivision fully engineered and under construction this year. And with that, if you've been in the Arden Park community, it's very beautiful. The new clubhouse and pool is just to the south here. They have little pocket parks, keeping with the theme of trails and parks within the community. There's really nothing more to add to this because it's internal to the subdivision. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
All right. Anybody up on the dais have any questions on this?
Yeah, I have a question.
Commissioner?
Does this phase include any information on the continuation of Clark Road into McGuire?
Good question, yes, sir. As part of
Not
4A,
McGuire, but McCormick.
yes, the developer is designing and engineering the continuation of Clark Road. Presently, we have from Claricona, let me go to the aerial. Presently, we have 2 lanes going from Claricona up just past the entrance to Oak Trail near Trout Lake Road. The developer is designing and engineering the road from the northern part, which would connect to the segment from McCormick all the way down, and as well as the western 2 lanes of the Clark Road extension. So we will have fully engineered plans. Phase 4B, Phase 5, the final build out of the subdivision. With that approval process, we'll be bringing you the schedule and how the Clark Road will be constructed with that phase. So we will have at this approval the plans. So we'll have a shovel-ready project. The next phase is, by the development agreement, requires some participation for the actual construction of Clark Road, among some other development agreement items.
Is there an estimated time frame as to the completion of that, the Clark Road piece?
The construction, based off the development agreement, comes with the Phase 5. The developer's intent, as the market stays steady, is just to keep rolling, just keep moving over and doing the site work, which would trigger that requirement. If something were to happen and they stop at Phase 4A, what we have is fully engineered plans, and that's what we will have. Once they move over to 4B and 5, then the development agreement triggers in the construction of Clark Road. So I'd like to say it would just, the timing is, it's going to happen, but something, the market may make a hiccup and they slow down.
So what phase are we on right now? with
We're on
Arden Park?
4A.
So,
right
so right now, as far as what has been completed to date?
With
Phase
regard
1, is Phase 1 completed right now?
of Arden Park or the
Arden
roadway?
Park North.
Or Arden Park North, okay, the south is Phase 1, to this right side is just north at this entrance, this is all Phase 2, this is all Phase 3, Phase 4, and then Phase 5 will be the remaining minus about 15 acres over here.
So you're looking at quite a few homes that will be completely developed before we can actually get the road to go through.
Yes,
So that means that traffic will also be there before the road is completed. So the infrastructure, to me, seems should become before the traffic and the homes being built. So the question I have is there any way that we can maybe talk to the developers about speeding that up before we get to Phase 5?
yes, we can always, when Phase 4B comes in, we're going to be providing you a pro rata of what the development agreement says, what's required. There's some additional commitments they have to meet, and in there, we have the right, we can renegotiate, we can incentivize, we can discuss
Okay.
those opportunities you're talking about, yes.
I would like to be a part of those discussions if possible, because I was just really pressed upon the point from the citizens' point of view that this traffic, we already have a traffic issue right now, and to be able to at least lend a voice to the citizens to say, hey, there's a plan in place to alleviate this before we get to this phase 5.
Yes, yes. And the way that it should play out is around that time, we'll be in our 5-year CIP process. And that would be the time to really say, okay, let's look at putting this project in the 5-year CIP. Some of that roadway, we are responsible for the cost. So we can look for the funding at that time, besides just saying we can give you transportation impact fee credits. So about that time, we'll be in our 5-year CIP process. We'll have a prioritized set of projects, where they're gonna be funded from, and then we can really have a good discussion with them on how we can get it done.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments up here? If not, I'm gonna open public hearing, open it to the public. Anybody in the public have any comments on item 11 for Arden Park, phase 4A? All right, you have to fill out hold it. What? You gotta come up and then fill another form out for this other article. You gonna talk on item 14, right?
Yeah, but I wanted to ask him one question.
Well, you gotta come up here. I'm gonna open the public and let you come up and ask the question. Come on. Just give us your name and your address. You'll need to fill out another form for that too.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right, that's all right.
No, I just wanted to ask a question about, because we do like.
Go ahead. You have to be at the,
The gentleman was saying, that all these phases and everything, I don't really understand all that. I just drive through here every day. And I just wanna make a comment and say between, between AD Mims and going towards Claricona, Ocoee, it gets really bad over there. I'm wondering if they're ever gonna widen that road out or whatever. That's the question. That's it.
you talking about from AD Mims?
Between AD Mims and Claricona.
Clark Road. North Clark Road.
Clark Road from AD Mims to Claricona. So presently, we just completed a traffic signal analysis from of Clark Road from Highway 50 all the way up to Claricona, Ocoee Road. In that traffic analysis, they've identified by changing some of the signal timings, by coordinating them better, that you can save a 2-minute drive time during the peak, which will be an increased drive time during the non-peak. That's gonna be sort of the first item, sort of not a Band-Aid approach that we're gonna do that's going to help Clark Road. With regards to widening Clark Road, the city owns all of the right-of-way to widen Clark Road in the future. If you're driving in that segment and you look at the shoulder on the west side of Clark Road, you'll see that's actually that's a median, that's the curb for the median, for the divided highway. What we do not have is the design or the engineered plans for the widening of Clark Road south of Claricona, Ocoee Road. That takes budget dollars to do that. We will have the connection before possibly we could have the design engineer and the money to construct the widening of Clark Road, the connection of Clark from Claricona, Ocoee up to McCormick Road, which will allow some signal timing and some changes at the intersection, which can help that. But the immediate, it's a signal timing. We do not have in our 5-year CIP money for design of Clark Road widening or the construction.
All right.
I'm
I've got it open in the public, right? That's, give me a minute, let them finish up.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes, sir. I'll fill out forms.
All right. When I close it and come back, I'll let you.
Okay, so to be sure I'm clear, the Arden Park phase is going to be going for a vote for 4B and 5 phase. Part of that 4B and 5 phase would be that the developer will pay for the designing and engineering of the roads that are needed on Clark Road going from 80 Mims to Claricona, Ocoee. The one thing that I have a question about is Arden Park itself, if you look at the entrance off of Clark Road, is a very odd entrance into the park, into the subdivision. And you're adding 90 homes at an average of 2 cars per home. That's 180 homes traveling through a community to continue a community. You would think that usually at 90 homes, there would be a second entrance, which would probably add additional impact fees or costs to the developer. So what I would say would be, it makes sense to me that there would be a second entrance and maybe some additional impact fees to go towards the development of the widening of Clark Road, instead of sending 90 homes through the existing layout and adding those additional cars to Clark Road, which is already overrun.
There is another, go ahead.
Well, there's an additional entrance on Clark Road with Phase 5. The additional entrance will be right over here.
So I guess in that instance, I would say that maybe we should look at maybe adding an entrance prior to 5, maybe adding it into this at 4B, 4-5. Prior to that, since we don't have any funds going towards 5 already for construction, that maybe we should get ahead of that with the developer, and hopefully that person will be the one that's maybe a little bit more responsible for the traffic congestion that's gonna ensue in that area. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Any more comments, Mike?
No, sir.
All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing and bring it back up. Is anybody here from the developer?
Yes.
Does anybody from the developer want to have any comments? No? Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Commissioner Oliver.
Okay, so, which kind of brings me back to our consent agenda item number 4. That first question being providing information, because the way you explained it, you talked about trips and you talked about traffic signal timings and different things of that nature to relieve some of that traffic on Clark Road. So that type of information is, we can see right now that it is needed. So we see that the citizens need information, and apparently they want that information. So it's important that we come back on March 5th with some type of solution to be able to provide education to the citizens in that area about the traffic trips and our plans to relieve them of some of that traffic moving forward. Also, widening Clark Road, we talked about engineering, and we talked about the engineering plans to do so. And of course, it's going to take money to do this. This is why we have our budget workshops. So as we have our budget workshops for 2019, it is certainly, since that is my district, certainly something that I am will be fighting for, to try to get some budgeting money to start the engineering process to widen Clark Road. So that is something that is actually on my agenda in our budget workshops.
All right, real quick. This is not the first time this has been told. It's not the first time it's been heard. It's been brought up before. It was brought up in a year or so ago. It's been brought up since then. Now you're on the commission. You've been here almost a year now, but it's been brought up before. So this is not the first time we've discussed this and showed it to people and been out and put it out on the news for the public. So you can't go out every day, every week. So as I said again, when you're going to your homeowner associations, or you go call your homeowner association presidents, inform them of what we're doing. So that's how that works. All right, I need a motion on number 11.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Oliver. Here's a second.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wilson. Let's vote. Real quick, before we go to item 12, I missed my chance to have the public announcements a while ago. So, the city's general municipal election for Commissioner District 1 will be held on Tuesday, March the 12th. To view a sample ballot, please visit the elections page on the city's website. Thank goodness the good old mayor got by, nobody run, so it will not be on there. So, and then the Women's Club will host their political forum next week, Wednesday, February 13th at 6:30 p.m. here in the Ocoee City Hall Commission Chambers. The public is invited to meet and hear the candidates for City Commission District 1. Those attending will have the opportunity to submit written questions for the candidates. The forum will be televised on Spectrum, Channel 493, at which time questions from residents may be called in during the broadcast at 407-554-7118 or emailed to citizens@ocoee.org. The Community Redevelopment Agency's next meeting here in the City Commission Chambers before the next City Commission meeting on Tuesday, February 19th at 5 p.m. All right, Item number 12. First reading of ordinance for 3872 Old Winter Garden Road annexation, small-scale comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning to plan unit development.
I'll go ahead and read the annexation ordinance. This is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, annexing into the corporate limits of the City of Ocoee, Florida, certain real property containing approximately plus or minus 1.25 acres located on the south side of Old Winter Garden Road and 260 feet east of Hempel Avenue, pursuant to the application submitted by the property owner. Finding said annexation to be consistent with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan, the Ocoee City Code, and the Joint Planning Area Agreement, providing for and authorizing the updating of official city maps, providing direction to the city clerk, providing for severability, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing for an effective date. The comp plan amendment ordinance, this is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, amending the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan as adopted on September 18, 1991 by ordinance number 91-28 as amended, amending the future land use map of the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use designation from low-density residential to professional office and services for certain real property containing approximately 1.25 acres located on the south side of Old Winter Garden Road and 260 feet east of Hempel Avenue, providing for and authorizing the revision of the official city future land use map, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And then the rezoning ordinance. This is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, changing the zoning classification from Orange County A1 to Ocoee PUD Planned Unit of Development on certain real property containing approximately 1.25 acres located on the south side of Old Winter Garden Road and 260 feet east of Hempel Avenue, pursuant to the application submitted by the property owner, finding such zoning to be consistent with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan, providing for and authorizing the revision of the official city zoning map, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
All right, what we're gonna do now, we don't open the public hearing up tonight. We'll have the second reading on February the 19th, 2019, and at that time, the public has a chance to comment on it before we vote on it. All right, we'll move on to number 13 now.
Yep.
All right, number 13, first reading of ordinance for Ocoee Town Shops PUD, substantial amendment to the plan unit development land use plan. You got that reading? Number 13?
Yep, I do. All right, this is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, approving a substantial amendment to the land use plan for Ocoee Town Shops PUD for certain real property comprising approximately 3.39 acres located north of and adjacent to State Road 50 and west of and adjacent to Clark Road pursuant to the application submitted by the property owner, finding such zoning to be consistent with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan and the Ocoee City Code as of the adoption date of this ordinance, providing for and authorizing the revision of the official city zoning map, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing an adoption date and an effective date.
You have any comments for, all right, same thing. This will be brought back on February the 19th for the public hearing and then discussed, and then we vote on it. So we'll move on to item 14. All right, on item 14, when we get into the thing, I'll call on the people who give me the handouts. So first we'll have, you got to read.
I do.
All right.
All right, this is an ordinance of the City of Ocoee, Florida, approving a substantial amendment to the PUD land use plan and preliminary subdivision plan for the Ocoee Landings PUD PSP for certain real property comprising approximately 13.74 acres located north of East Silver Star Road and south of Johio Bay subdivision pursuant to the application submitted by the property owner, amending the Ocoee Landings PUD PSP to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 20 feet, finding consistency with the Ocoee Comprehensive Plan, repealing inconsistent ordinances, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Mike, you want to make any comments for,
Real number 14?
oh, that's second reading, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes, I do. Okay, thanks. For the record, Mike Rivers, City Planner. This item is a substantial amendment to a plan unit development. This plan unit development was approved earlier in 2015. It consisted of 50 single-family lots with access onto Silver Star Road, and it had four commercial lots adjacent, on the west side adjacent to the Publix. Had stormwater retention in between the 50 single-family lots. Between that and Silver Star Road, there was a vacation of a paper right-of-way on the rear and a right-of-way on the east side. The subdivision the PUD sets up the zoning. It's not a straight zone as like an R1A. The plan unit development set up a set of parameters for the single-family lots, which required a 25-foot front building line setback for the single-family home and a rear setback of 20 feet. At the time the developer was seeking approvals for this plan unit development, he had a certain home builder under contract to construct the homes. During or after the project received commission approval and went to construction, that home builder backed out. They subsequently brought in a new home builder, Hovnanian Homes, to take on the development of just the 50 single-family lots. Presently, the full site is under development. There will be commercial pads left, and then the 50 single-family homes. Hovnanian, after they purchased, started seeing some good sales with a certain type model home in other communities, and they approached the city with seeking a reduction in either the front or rear setback in order to fit a larger footprint home that is successfully selling in other communities. At the time, myself, city staff, we reviewed it, and we really wanted to try to keep the front setback at 25 feet and not move it any closer. So we looked at adjusting the rear setback from 20 foot to 10 feet. Keeping in mind that there was some additional right-of-way vacated in the rear that gave both properties additional land. Thought there would be a significant buffer to kind of allocate towards that rear setback encroachment if it were to be passed. We took forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission a request to adjust the rear setback from 20 feet to 10 feet, and were met with some good opposition. In that Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the applicant agreed to adjust their request from the rear to the front. So we're seeking a front, so we re-advertised, and under this ordinance, we are seeking a revision to the plan unit development. Because it deals with setbacks, it's considered a substantial change. So in essence, we're kind of rezoning the property again to PD under these new guidelines, which are stipulated in the site data table. The request before you today is to change the front setback from 25 feet to 20, just 5 feet, not adjust the rear setback, which is 20 feet. At the Planning and Zoning meeting, if you looked at your minutes, there was also somewhat of a potential commitment from the representatives of the home builder at the time to maybe look at reducing the house size from 2-story to 1-story on certain lots. That request was not made via application, and that's not something that we have ever done by requiring a limitation on 1-story or 2-story for a detached single-family home. If it's the pleasure, after we have the public hearing, to do any other modifications to the PUD, we have to come back through this process again. But the ordinance before you is solely for a front setback change that was originally 25 feet to a 20-foot to allow them to provide a different home model on the lot.
All right, Corey, I want to ask you a question. What was the distance of right-of-way vacated for the homeowners in the back and to the property?
I believe it was a paper 60-foot right-of-way, and each side got 30 feet. Now that was, it wasn't along the full rear. It was just, let me see if I can see it on that. It was to about where this cul-de-sac is, this section. This previous section was vacated in the past, and it was divided up at the developer.
So mainly it's where the houses are, no road.
Yes,
Back
these,
there. So they
these
got an extra
residents
30
all
foot.
received, yes,
Okay, all right,
it's part of that vacate.
all right.
Initially, we assumed that the vacate would split in half because that's how it appeared on this stretch of right-of-way when it was vacated, and the property appraiser initially gave it all to the developer. And we said, no, that's not what we said at the public hearing. We said it would go half and half. And he explained why, because it was actually, this was all one developer at the time, and when they vacated it, it all went to one lot, and they divided it up themselves. So, but the developer worked on his own with the property appraiser to get that 30-foot given to those other property owners. And they do have that fee simple ownership now.
All right, I'm gonna, open it up to the public, and when we do, we have a time thing here on the bill. You get 3 minutes on your, when I call you up, you have a 3-minute time period. So let's try to stick to that. Also, at the end, I'll have, when I close the public hearing, I'll open it back up. You can bring up the, developer they wanna talk. All right? All right, we'll start with, Perez, Mr. Perez. Give us your name and address, sir. And on this paperwork you have here, we'll enter that into the record, okay?
Yes,
I'll have them enter this into the record.
thank you. Good evening, my name is Socrates Perez at 2412 Ohio Bay Drive, Lot 7 on Ohio Bay subdivision. 23 years with this lot, 21 years since our family built and moved into our custom home. We enjoy shade, quietness, privacy, and tender loving care of this place. In addition, we serve our homeowners association in the architectural review board, also serve the community as a realtor for over 29 years. In our lot, behind the original property line, there's an electric pole and air wires that have been on fire explosion at least twice while we lived there. Last time, the transformer tank was replaced for a more modern feature, but all 6 properties along the property line are affected. However, our lot has the pole that is 27 feet west of the east side boundary, and there are also poles within the lot 10. Now that a new property line has been granted to accommodate the new development, this mentioned pole is right in the middle of our backyard. Not only as a hazard issue, but also inconvenient and jeopardizing the resale value of the property. I brought my concern and came up to the podium for the record since the very first time, the beginning of talking about this development. The quickest answer I heard originally was not to worry that underground easement would happen at some point. On the last hearing, there was no answer to it, perhaps because the subject was in regards to the setbacks of the new home sites. Duke Energy was contacted and they mentioned a preliminary quote of over 30 grand to move the poles to the new property line. I still concerned with the problem, this problem that's not caused by us, and ask for a wise and logical solution instead of being ignored. I also sent a letter in this regard to city planner in charge to make him aware and request assistance on this matter.
You didn't provide your phone number in your letter. So, yeah,
All
so
right.
Mayor, what happened was, the process for vacating a right-of-way is the city sends out letters to all the utility companies with a location of the right-of-way to be vacated, requesting if they have any objection. If they have facilities located in the area of easement, they will provide an objection. If the objection cannot be overcome, we don't move forward. Typically, what happens is it's usually a Duke Energy power line, and they enter into a separate easement with the property owner who's going to receive that right-of-way. In this case, after I got his letter, we went back and researched. We do have the documentation from Duke Energy. They stated they do not have an objection to to the vacate, which means they didn't realize they had the lines in the area of right-of-way vacate. So with that information, I have other steps I take to seek, because I've never had the situation where they say they don't object, and then they have lines and they want to charge the homeowner to remove the power lines. So I have the documentation. I was going to seek the proper next step on the city's behalf to show them, remind them that they provided us a document that said they do not object to the vacate, which means they do not have facilities in the area, when in fact they did. And so, before I wrote him back a letter, he didn't provide his phone number in that letter. I would have had all that information in place. So he does have lines.
But you have my
Duke's-
emails.
And Duke
Right.
does not have, Duke did say they do not object to the vacate, so it's a mistake on their side.
But are they gonna
not
move the
a-
pole?
Well, that's where we've got to, who do you talk to, and we got to get all that worked out, which we just found the documentation, when he sent the letter that says they do not object, so that's, we've got steps we go to. I would seem to think they made the mistake, they're gonna have to rectify.
Seems to me like what he's saying, Mr. Perez, is that Duke, they're gonna work with Duke to try to get them to straighten it out and get it
And
done.
I appreciate getting to know that something is not being ignored
No.
at this point, because I've been 3 times on these podiums about it. So I appreciate the consideration.
Well, it seems to me like Duke fell down on their part too, not paying attention to what the thing was. And they've been really busy. I know we've tried to get them to move our poles, and they've been up in different places in the country with all the storms and, working and not being here to do the stuff, so.
Well, you understand my concern, right?
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay.
So, you have Mr. Rummer's number?
Yeah, I do.
When you deal with him, Mike, can you make sure there's a problem that the staff, city manager, somebody needs to call and let us know? All right?
Yeah, if I can, I also want to express my full agreement on on only having 1-story units in the back of the new property to the south. Just want to express why, because this would help our new privacy issue that we have. Remember, we had over 20 years there with no issue, and then we would have a giraffe effect kind of on having 2 stories looking into our properties.
I understand, but, you know, there's certain zoning, certain things can be done, so. I do know that one of the discussions when we started this project, I remember they vacating that with the trees to stay and stuff, to try to help that problem, so.
Yeah, I just want to
Okay,
express.
all right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next is, Eddie Ortiz.
I'm not gonna take too much of your time because the young man already addressed what I wanted to address. But I do really wanna put down a word on that, the 2-story thing. I moved in there for privacy, and those trees are not blocking anything. If you want, you can come in my yard and look at it anytime you want. I mean, it's only 6 houses. They can do whatever they want with the rest of the property. I would like my privacy, sir. That's all I'm asking for.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, we'll bring the developer up in just a minute. David Swisher.
David Swisher, 2432 Ohio Bay Drive, Ocoee, Florida. We had a meeting here on November the 13th. The Planning and Zoning Commission passed the resolution about single-story homes. I'd like to know why staff is going against that recommendation.
We have there's no buffering requirement in the comprehensive plan. There's buffering requirements in the comprehensive plan. There's no requirement when you have to buffer single family from single family. There's no requirement to limit 2-story or 1 single story. under general detached single-family zonings, you have a minimum height of 35 feet is the limiting factor. So there is no regulation as a staff planner to direct the commission to say, we need to limit the height of these homes. We've never limited heights of homes. That's why. That may be a decision, a condition of approval that is put on by a commission. But for staff to say, we want a buffer type that is not backed by the comprehensive plan, then we are not providing the regulatory job that we do.
Why did planning and zoning come up with that proposal then?
Well, planning and zoning can make any kind of proposal or anything they want to. It's just an advisory board that comes to the staff and then comes to us. They're an advisory board. They do not make the ruling, sir. They can make any ruling they want to make. Doesn't mean that's what it's going to be. I mean, staff has to go through it just like he just said, and then it comes to us, and then we make the final decision.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, now, is Guy Trussell and Jim Gorman, is that the developers? Is that y'all? All right, why don't you, I'm gonna close the public hearing break. You wanna keep it open for
Well,
that?
it's,
I'm gonna keep it open, let you come up, and we'll ask a couple of these questions to you. Go ahead and introduce yourself and say who you are.
I'm Jim Gorman with K. Hovnanian Homes,
What's your address?
2301 Lucian Way, Maitland, Florida.
All right. A question I want to ask you up front, what is the back landscaping you have laid out to do on your back, the back of that line?
I do know that we provided the extra 30 feet. I do not have the landscape plan.
Do you have it, Mike?
so presently, the development plan has, the site is all, you can see where the stormwater ponds are. And so the site, all of the lots drain to the front of the road, and then they're carried to the stormwater pond south. Those lots in the rear drain forward, so their lots are raised up. They will have so they're higher, and they back grade, and with a wall, with a fence, and then the trees that are remaining on that line, we're presently out there looking at them to make sure we can save all the trees we can. So there's going to be some trees, it's not gonna be heavily forested by any means. Then the lot has to plant 3 trees itself. When you have these 50-foot wide lots, they generally plant 1 in the front and 2 in the rear. They're gonna be small trees. So then you have the right-of-way, whatever vegetation was located in that right-of-way that was dedicated. So they will, the land grades up a little bit, there's a fence, some trees will be saved, and then trees will be added.
All right, what I would say is if you can, just try to leave as much vegetation or as trees that can be there, maybe even put in bigger ones if you could, just to help out that side of that district, the area there. All right, does anybody up here on the board have any questions? Anything of the?
Yeah, I do. Would it be a significant impact to you if you did make those 12 homes single-story rather than 2-story? Just say shuffle the plan around where you could put those 2 stories, say, to the west of them where there's more of a buffer?
I wouldn't call it significant. I think the ordinance, the way it's drafted, with pulling it up, if we didn't have the ordinance the way it was drafted, every home would have to be a 2-story in the community. With the way it's drafted today, and with what the market really requires, are single-story plans, the majority, we probably project the majority of our sales to be our single-story plans, maybe 70%. So I think the combination of the buffer, your street tree requirements, and our ability to pull the house up an extra 5 feet, I think that protects most every homeowner in the entire subdivision.
Could you reduce that number of the 2-story in that area there to single-story?
For lots, are they 14 through?
Lots 14 through 25?
Right, in the northeastern section? If that would be a condition and approval, yes, we would agree.
I mean, would you do it?
We can end
Yeah,
everything right now.
there's no objection from staff to
No,
them
I
them
want him
proposing.
to say it and state it. I mean, we're not arm twisting, but I mean,
No, no,
it's
no.
a great neighbor to do
Right,
that.
we want
You-
happy
I-
neighbors.
Listen, and we've heard the neighbors, and
Okay.
when we see the P and Z comments,
All right.
we know it wasn't a condition of this ordinance, but it's okay, we will commit to that.
All right.
I think
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
make everybody happy, really.
Huh?
Single stories
That's
with
what he's
those
saying,
houses.
sir.
Single stories on lots 14 through 25.
Good?
All right? Okay. All right. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question. I know we had asked before
All
the
right.
prices, it was 1,400 square feet was the minimum. Are the prices still in the same range as it was when we
I
saw
don't think
the?
we've
pre-
released pricing yet.
Was the previous developer, was that the one that released prices?
It was a different,
I know, a different
Staff
developer, right, I
member.
realized, I heard that it changed, but I didn't know if it was in the same, that's one thing that residents in my district are always asking, what are the general prices, the house range that, I mean, we're not gonna hold you to it, but are,
I don't have that in front of me, but I believe if the minimum plan is 1,400 square feet, I believe our smallest plan that we offer today is about 1,799, so 1,800 square feet. It will be in the mid to upper twos to start.
that's all they wanna hear, thank you. In my district, that's what they wanna hear.
Yeah, no, of course, of course.
and Commissioner, I have a meeting Thursday at 2 o'clock on site with FDOT about that.
Oh, thank you, appreciate that.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I have one last question about the,
Oh, don't go nowhere
I'm sorry,
yet.
about the commercial side. The commercial side of the property. How much acreage is set aside for the commercial side? And will it be prefabbed until there's actual vendors going into those areas?
Commissioner, that might be a better answer for Mr. Rumor. I don't control, I'm only involved with the residential.
The resident side, yeah.
You can get it for him, can't
Yes.
you, Mike?
Yeah, Commissioner, I don't have written down what the amount of commercial areas, but they will be pad-ready with the interior, there's an interior, there's a right-in, right-out with a commercial pad, a road with an access point back here, and there's a pad here, pad here, pad here. So they will be pad-ready for whatever commercial development goes in there.
And there's access point to the public shopping plaza?
Yes, there's an
Okay,
access
gotcha.
point right back here.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. All right.
Not yet.
We need to vote. I need a motion. We closed the public hearing, brought it back. I need a
Do
motion.
we need to make the motion with the single-family homes on the,
Yeah, a motion for approval would be a motion to approve the substantial amendment to the approved planned unit development land use plan ordinance, subject to staff recommendation and the additional condition of approval that lots 14 through 25 be limited to single-story homes.
I'll make the motion, so said.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Grogan, seconded by Commissioner Forrester. Any more comments? Not, let's vote. Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you. All right. Clearing them out of here. All right. Regular agenda.
Everybody went home. Don't they wanna stay and hear the rest?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you for coming. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir.
You don't wanna stay for the rest?
No, I gotta,
No, okay.
but if you need me, you got my phone number. All right, let's go to regular agenda number 15, discussion and direction regarding the Blueford Avenue streetscape modification for the purpose of addressing public safety concerns between Delaware Street and McKee Street. Deputy Development Service Director, CRA Administrator. That's a long time.
Yes, sir, it is a long title, but for the record, Ginger Corliss Development Services. As you're aware, Blueford Avenue is substantially complete, and it's common when a streetscape is reaching this point to do what's called a walkability assessment. And what we do in a walkability assessment is kind of go through the corridor and determine if there are elements such as the trees or utilities or light poles, are there anything that actually impedes mobility on the sidewalk? These issues can have happened during construction, during design. There's a lot of different reasons why they happen. So basically, we had an assessment team that comprised of Steve Krug, Public Works Director, as well as Peter Kosicki, the urban designer, and myself, that walked the corridor. And based on that walking corridor, actually we did it 3 times, we actually came up with some opportunities that we'll be discussing tonight and actually some recommendations to that. We actually did the first phase, which is Delaware to McKee, and we will actually complete the second phase of our assessment as we're completing the McKee to Silver Star. So during the assessment, we actually identified basically 4 elements that we were looking at to make some determinations and some recommendations. And I'm going to be going through those individually in a few minutes on those recommendations. But we also had to take into consideration, if we were making recommendations and the contractor is continuing to work on the project, we had to actually speak to him and say, if we had recommendations regarding any type of removal, could that be done? And it's actually removing certain plant materials to those areas north of McKee, to Silver Star, and actually the affirmative was given. So if we have a recommendation that ends up being in direction given by the commission to remove or relocate certain plant materials, those plant materials can be relocated, and a warranty would be provided by the contractor within the existing contract limits for those components. There may be elements that may come back to you at a later date, not tonight, that if we have issues that we're asking for to be done that cannot be done within the contract limits, then we will actually have to come back to you at a later time with those components. So let's talk about those 4 areas. The first one is loss of maneuverability at intersections. It's very critical in our intersection to make sure that we have plenty of room at basically that holding room area, that we don't pinch that room to allow for people to gather and to make those movements to properly cross the street, and that we're not blocking line of sight. Based on our assessment throughout the corridor, we identified where those areas, and you can if you kind of pinch down to each of the intersections you're coming down, the plants actually change. The palms are actually at the curb side. And as you come down to an intersection, the crepes then become into the inside. So you actually have a maneuver you have to make, so basically you're kind of squinching down your 5 feet and kind of have to do it. So especially in front of the middle school, there's becoming some problems, maneuverability, people getting off the bikes and walking. So we're actually recommending that we remove the 7 crepe myrtles between Delaware and McKee Street, replace the street trees with planters, thereby actually increasing the sidewalk width. This is extremely important, especially in the area of the middle school. The second point we looked at was then loss of maneuverability or mobility kind of in the mid-block area. And what we found were actually there was 2 locations. The first is along the middle school side, is that where there's the fence, the gate coming out, there's a walkway. It basically comes out to a palm. We need to actually relocate that palm, return it to sidewalks so we have a better area that people can gather, walk, and if there needs to be a great release. When kids come out of that, there's quite a few amount of time, and so it gives them more room to safely maneuver the streetscape. The other palm that we saw from the standpoint of mid-block happened to be right around the 112 Bluford Avenue, is actually where, just north of the grooming area into our property, the planter is actually on the lip of the apron of the driveway. So we're actually recommending that that be removed, a component there. So there's 2 palms at those locations. Now, blocks of line of sight to signs and crossings. And this is very critical when you're taking a look at pedestrian crossings in front of the school area. As you're going southbound on Bluford, you'll have the flashing pedestrian lights. There's actually kind of blocked basically by the trees. They have a lot happening at the component just at that Ohio intersection. On the north side as well as the south side. So that we're actually recommending that we remove and relocate 3 palms so that we actually clean up this area, so those areas near Ohio where we're having the ped crossings have clean line of sight. In fact, if you notice, the area on the right side, my right side, is we're looking to the standpoint of the sign, is actually on the school side, is actually leaning towards the street so we can actually have a better line of sight, so we can actually straighten that sign and have a clear line of sight to the pedestrian crossings. The fourth is reduction in light distribution. If you recall, we did make a change in the light lamps that we actually are recommending going from a street roadway light to a decorative light. And when it was occurring out there from the standpoint, because the trees are planted 30 foot on center, you actually have a light pole that again is in the middle of them, we're losing some light distribution along the corridor. So based on that, where we have a double palm, we're actually a couple areas as well as a single palm, is actually removing those palms that are adjacent to those light poles when we don't have enough room to have the light spill along the roadway and along the sidewalk. That actually impacts 7 of the palms. So when you add them up as we're going through, it's basically 12 palms to be relocated to the north side or being removed from the south side of McKee, as well as the 7 crepe myrtles. We've actually provided you a graphic that actually displays each of the relocation removals to that. We'll also be forming basically to the north side the same type of assessment and actually showing where then these plants can be relocated prior to planting them, of course. So what we're asking tonight, if you concur with our philosophy and what we're doing, is kind of the direction to proceed to actually having the contractor do this work.
Commission, any comments?
I do. I do. Mayor, tonight when we watched your State of the City, I think the one crepe myrtle in the corner of Lafayette, you had to walk around it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, I saw that in there. I know that I'm having a lot of folks who like them. I have some that don't. I don't know if I want to go home tonight because my husband will tell me he likes them all, but, you know, I noticed where the crosswalk is, where there's the light that shows 20 miles an hour. I believe that's blocked
Correct.
by a palm tree.
Correct.
And so is the solar panel blocked.
Correct.
Right there, so you've got some issues there. I do ride my scooter down there once in a while on the sidewalk. It's sidewalk rated, okay. But you can, it's hard to maneuver around some of these.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, so I think this, I've looked at where you're gonna move them, where you're gonna remove, and I think that a lot of them are justified. Because I think we want a walkability, and I notice as I'm down there on my scooter, there's not walkability with a lot of the way these are planted. So, I concur that we have some issues that we have to take care of.
All right. Anybody else have any comments? I do. I'm the same thing. I brought this up to him a few weeks ago because I'd walked a couple days. I'd walked home. I was on the car and had to walk. So, but I was walking home and come to find out, I watched some of the kids. They were running out that way and having to get off their bicycle, and there were 2 or 3 of them because they couldn't all go at the same time. But that thing came in, so I think that's a great thing to do. Like I said, when you walk, it gives you more maneuverability down through there. And taking some of the palms out we talked about a long time ago. And this way it opens it up for the light to get out more, and also the vision of not having somebody close vision looking down through the palm trees, which I think it won't really change it. It'll still look good. It looks good now that the telephone poles are gone, but this will work better.
It is from the standpoint of aesthetically, you're still gonna have that palm-lined avenue, and that's very important from an aesthetic standpoint. Here we will be having some breaks, but I think it is important to make sure that our streetscape also works for the purpose of walking, biking, and safe crossings.
Yeah, and while we're talking about it, I talked to Steve, and I know you guys about it, is that they put that pole up with the light on it at the end of, from Delaware coming from the school on the east side, that old ugly pole with just another light on it stuck in the middle of our new decorated road and all. So we're putting in to redo that also. Take that thing, they put a light up there by the old Mr. Miner's house, Tiger Miner's house.
Yeah.
They just stuck an old wood pole up with a light on it.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, it's there, it's ugly. But we're working on getting rid of that and putting one of the regular lights that matches up to the other ones, so. Anybody else? If not, need a motion?
Make that motion.
We need a motion, right? Motion.
This is a motion to approve the Bluford Avenue streetscape modifications per staff recommendation.
Here, motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Forrester, Commissioner Wilson seconded. Any more comments? Not, let's vote. Thank you. Good job.
I think I wanna go home.
Number 16, discussion and direction regarding potential properties available for acquisition. Assistant City Manager Shadrack.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. This is an item that we had hoped to have a workshop on, and We, of course, had the State of the City address this evening, and we have a CRA board meeting prior to the next commission meeting. So in an effort to expedite some of the discussion, we are bringing this item forward to discuss something that has become kind of a symptom of all the good things that we're doing with our downtown, with the developments that are going on in CRA, and that is that property is becoming more valuable here, and we are seeing more opportunities to look at acquiring properties because we're doing good things with our property. So before I get started here, I want to make one correction. We are not going to bring up discussion on the recording studio this evening. We will be bringing that back in the next couple meetings, along with some other items. So tonight I'm going to speak to you about Forest Lake Golf Course and the properties owned by the Church of Christ in our downtown. Forest Lake Golf Course has been a fixture here since 1994, and it is a part of a long-term lease of property that is city-owned, operated by Ocoee Golf LLC, and they have approximately 25 years remaining on their lease. And additionally, it's part of the consumptive use permits for both the city of Ocoee and Winter Garden, and it receives effluent from both cities. And it is probably one of the most profitable golf operations in Central Florida right now, and it has a stated positive net income of over $500,000, and they make lease payments to the city that are roughly $45,000 a year. We were recently approached by the operators of the Ocoee Golf LLC, Ken Azell and George Clifton, who are interested in the city possibly buying out the golf operation. So I'm gonna continue on with some of the information. What I would like to receive from the commission this evening, and before I say that, there are some advantages for the commission to look into that. If the commission desired to continue the golf course, there are still some options that would allow the city to sell off a couple of select parcels and make a pretty good profit on those, and still keep the golf course by selling them to private developments. And so in order to finance something like buying out that golf operation, we need to have a clear evaluation of what the operation itself is worth, because they do not own the land, but they have built a business there and they have assets, and they have a balance sheet that is pretty profitable over the last 25 years. So in order for us to accurately move forward and consider this, we would need the commission to direct us as to professionally determining what the valuation would be of that. I will tell you that land values in the area right now are $100,000 to $180,000 an acre, depending on what use it is. Okay, there's a considerable amount of acreage that could still be developed there and still maintain the golf course. So, and there are multiple ways that we could possibly look at reconfiguring the course and still offering a high-quality 18-hole golf course. But in order for us to really move forward and consider this and bring it back in a more meaningful way to you, we need to determine what the value of that operation is. And we would recommend that if you, either by consensus or by vote this evening, if you recommend that we proceed forward, we would recommend that you authorize us to secure GAI Consultants and Stephen McDonald, who is a very well-known, accomplished economist who is certified to do business valuations of this type. And this is not a large group of people that does this. It's a pretty small group of people. And if we chose to do a full-blown business valuation to determine the fair market value, it's going to cost $19,500. There are also financial aspects of proposed sale options that they could evaluate, you know, for a smaller fee, 9 to 14,000. But if we want really the A to Z, soup to nuts, I would like for the commission to direct staff to take, either by taking contingency fund balance or other means, to authorize us to proceed with hiring a consultant of this nature. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the Ocoee Golf LLC before proceeding to the next property.
If we buy the golf course, what does that actually mean? Are we going to have to staff all of the workers out there and greenskeepers and all that?
The city would either to continue, yes, in a short answer, yes. If we wish to continue operation and we buy out the business, one option could be that we negotiate that until such time as we have hired an operator to operate it, that existing staff remain on as part of any kind of sales agreement, or we could decide to take it on ourselves, which I would not recommend, or you know, we would stipulate time that they don't vacate until we have hired a operator.
So there's numerous options.
But
that
there's
we can
numerous
look at.
options that we could bring back to you. City of Oviedo purchased their course, and we understand that it has worked out very well for them. After having done that, as you're probably well aware, the market is kind of shrinking in this area. There have been numerous closings, so more people theoretically have been coming to Forest Lake to play golf.
Real quick, Oviedo's is managed by a golf company out of Winter Garden. There's a golf management company out of Winter Garden that manages Oviedo's. So.
That would probably be the smartest thing to do,
Yeah,
is hire a group of professionals to do it.
Well, I want to go back to the valuation before we put the cart before the horse here. The valuation, you said it's about $19,000 from the GAI.
Yes, that's correct.
So, and you mentioned that this would be coming from contingency.
That is an option.
Okay.
I
As an
left that
option.
to you as an
Okay.
option.
Has there, perhaps, has there been, place another option on the table to have the sellers or the potential sellers to absorb some of the cost of that valuation?
The commission can direct us to do that, absolutely. They have prepared a business valuation of their own, and so I'm sure that they would probably say, well, we did one.
They did.
And they did, and it's, of course, what a seller would prepare. It's a number that's, we need to professionally verify through our own means.
Yeah,
or that would be staff's
their
recommendation.
valuation.
Yes.
But in the amount of money they were asking for, we'd have to be maneuvering around with the price anyway, because it's not in line with what we want to do. So it would be a process of some of the money coming off from taking that evaluation. Because the valuation part, we could take their offering, but you wouldn't want to do that. I want us to do our own, where we can get the valuation true to what we think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely want to get a second valuation. That would make sense to do that, because you want to know what the true valuation is as it pertains to.
I will recognize you
Yeah.
when we get through talking, Mr. Atkins. You keep raising your hand, but I'll get to you. Okay? Okay.
Don't we
Go
count
ahead.
that property as parks?
I just wanted to confirm with Mr. Rumor that we do have some money in the contractual services line of the development services budget that you could direct us to use also.
I got one question, kind of a question. Now, we actually own it already.
That's
We
correct.
own all the property. So we're not buying it, we're just buying out their lease, getting them out of their lease early.
The equipment as well.
You're buying out the buildings, you're buying out.
Right, buying all
Yeah,
all
and the
their
lease,
building
and the
stuff.
lease.
So what are their options? I mean, what do we allow them to do if, under these circumstances? If we don't decide that we wanted to do that,
They
which,
can sell it to somebody else.
okay, yeah, and I'm not
They
very,
can sell their-
they can sell their lease to another private, I'm not
Does the
too,
contract allow that?
Yeah. We have first option in the contract.
Okay.
Right.
That land is counted as part of our
Yes.
parks, so I mean, that's, it is in the calculations, correct?
That's
of
correct.
total park land.
It's included in our gross recreation and open space level of service acreage.
Let me just make a quick comment for, if something happened and the golf course goes away, or if, say, for instance, like a lot of them did, if it did, we had a guy from Miami come up here and wanted to give us, he would give $21 million for that property. Which, I don't want to sell it, I want it to be
Right,
part of
I
the
don't
city
want-
forever.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, the property value is what's there.
Right.
If we could sell enough on that property just to pay for the golf course. But we don't want to take away the golf course. That's one of our main, everybody
I
up there,
agree.
the people that talk to me in Forest Brook and Weston Bay and
Yep.
them, they all love that place up there, and where Lou lives over there.
And the
too.
residents who bought houses that
Yeah.
back up.
Yeah, behind it, exactly.
But it's, I mean,
Am I right?
The thing about it is, I want to know, can we have discussion of having the owners put some skin in the game? But again, as opposed to us forking out all $19,000 for evaluation. And I'm sure it's a reasonable request to ask them to absorb some of that cost of the $19,000. If they're willing to sell, if they're motivated to sell, so why not ask them to?
Well, we don't want them to sell it to
to
somebody
act-
else.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about to us, to the city. To the
but,
city, as opposed to us absorbing all the cost of the valuation.
well, if you'd ask them that, but the thing of it is, what you
Right.
put in there, if it sells to us, then we both split the cost of the valuation. They're not going to do that if we don't buy it.
Why not ask them up front?
Well, we plan on doing that. I mean, that's just, we're just saying this is the process we want to do. But I can tell you that ain't what they're gonna do. They're gonna say, we'll sign that if you buy the place. We'll do that.
I mean-
If you decide to buy it. If you don't decide to buy it, then we want you to pay the $19,000.
There'll be a tentative contract, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm
Put in
saying. All
place.
this is just to get an evaluation of what it is worth by our, I want to make sure. If do a
We have to make our own
$5,000 decorated
evaluation.
home, we find out what the money part is.
Right.
And what the value they're spending, because they can write down what they want to on the valuations.
Well,
I personally feel as though we should know,
Yeah.
the 19,000 tells us what we need to know to make a wise decision.
And we're
I mean, I know, I talked about $10,000
Yeah.
a while ago, but this is,
Yeah.
Multi-million-dollar project.
this could be a project that could be very beneficial. I mean, if it goes within what the community, we have a golf course.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at Dub's Dread up and down, but Dub's Dread is very popular
City
now.
took it over.
The
Huge.
city took it over.
Huge.
And, but it is a focal point in our city for people who play golf. And they say it's I mean, I have friends that say it's wonderful, but, I think we need to know what the value of it is.
Well,
We should know
that's
what
what
the
we want to
value.
find out.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely need to know the
Well-
value of it. My only concern is just the $19,000 in the sale of absorbing some of that cost. If we can move forward that way, then again, that relieves my concerns.
Well, we can leave
At
that,
least-
we
at
can
least-
leave that option
at
open
least-
for
at least
staff to
as-
negotiate
As an
that.
option, yeah. Yes.
But I would like to make a recommendation to approve the
Well,
monies.
does the resident want to speak?
I'm not Rob, where would be the best place to take the money from?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Where would be the best place that we should take the monies from?
Well, I think, I'm pretty sure we have enough in contingency right now, but if we don't, if we give staff the flexibility, we have some accounts and development services too. We have used Mr. McDonald before, and we use them to put together pretty much the whole package for what we're doing for City Center, and we're very comfortable with him. It's kind of very complicated when the golf course came in with their own valuation, and you know, they do this for a living, and we looked at it and kind of understood that, you know, the real facts are probably a bit different from what they're presenting to us. You know, as the mayor said, you know, we have had offers to buy all the property. We're talking millions of dollars here, and whether we get them, I think we can get them to buy in. All we really need to do is, if we want to take the $19,000 out of whatever we offer them, we can do that. But we can make sure they have some skin in the game.
Right.
We will take it off.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that would probably delay us several months if we tried to do that. It's kind of tough to get them in here to talk, and once you do get them in here, they have their idea of what's fair and what's not fair. And I think we can make the city whole, or we can make sure that that's divided fairly between the two. But it's something we really need to do. We need to get someone who's, who can look at the whole operation, who can figure out what the value of the leasehold is, and give us a fairly accurate price for the business, because we own the land. And it sounds from, in talking with the commission over the last couple of years about the golf course, it seems like something that you all want to do. And it's probably better that we move forward fairly quickly with this before they do have some discussions and see if anyone else is interested in taking over the business.
One of the good, and I'll let you come up as soon as I make this point, Mr. Atkins. One of the good things about if it's under the city control, one of the problems out there, which our citizens are going there and supposed to get a certain discount, but they raise the rates all the time. They're always raising the rates, jumping the rates, and even on the local people, it keeps bumping up, bumping up. If we have it, we control that for our citizens, and that's what, one of the good, and the citizens are up there are telling me, they want us to buy it back.
Yeah, and Mayor, I think you and Craig were, discussed the issue, and I just wanted to say that one more time, that there's certain, if you'd like to call them out parcels, that we could market, and whatever the ending cost is, we're fairly certain that a big chunk of that can be paid for by just marketing those excess pieces of property for residential and or commercial, and still keep the golf course and have a viable 18-hole golf
All right,
course.
I'm gonna let Mr. Atkins come up.
While he's coming up, I just have a question.
Yeah.
If we were to use $19,000 out of contingency funds, what would be the balance after $19,000?
There was roughly $44,000.
How much is that?
There was roughly $44,000 left in contingency as of the last meeting, so it would be, there'd be roughly 25,000.
So $25,000 left in contingency, and we're at what, February, whatever.
We don't use it.
We're how far off we are from replenishing that contingency?
October 1.
October 1st.
October 1st.
Yeah,
So we're down to $20,000.
That's what it's for.
That's
So the
just
turn,
me.
okay, well, I just remember sitting here last year looking for some money
No.
from contingency, and it was just,
But that's what contingency is for.
the problem was, we're cutting us low
Yeah.
on contingency funds, and now
Take it out of
we're,
our salaries if we run out.
yeah, right.
It's gonna take a long
See,
time.
when it gets low, then you can't make
The
it.
gas money for the trucks.
That may take a while.
All right, Mr. Atkins, you gonna fill me out another form too now?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate all you very much.
Thank you.
I want to start off by saying, well, my name's Chris Adkins. I live at 606 Ridgefield Avenue in Ocoee, Florida. It's the historic Brentwood Heights subdivision. I bought my house there 20 years ago, and I hope to pass it on to my children. I thoroughly enjoy Ocoee. So when it comes to this particular thing, and when I comment on something, it's not specifically that I look it up and I have an objection to something. I listen to the conversation, and then use my public comments to do as I can. At the end of the day, wasn't this facility once actually completely controlled municipality from the municipal, from municipal, right? Before it was sold to Forest Oaks?
I didn't understand the question.
Forest Lake is leasing a portion of the city-owned property
Prior
there.
to Forest Lake, the
Right.
city of Ocoee managed and ran Forest Lake.
No.
No, it was never a golf course.
But stop it, or back up, let me explain it.
Yeah.
I was here when we did it.
Yeah.
25 years ago, they built that course because we bought a sewer facility. In that process of the sewer facility, we had to have a place to run the effluent to. And in the process, these guys come along, we looked at like 3 or 4 different golf course companies. These guys come along with the best deal. They paid the upfront cost of almost $1 million to run the line from our sewer facility to that golf course. They also take the effluent up to 2 million gallons a day off our course, off our city to that golf course. So we bought that property for that purpose.
Okay.
But what we did was we signed a lease with them. It's a 50-year with a 25-year lease to run the property, build what they wanted to build, and do that for what amount they did. But that's how we got to where we're at. They're in their upper 60s. They want to retire, so they want to sell the lease back to us. We don't want anybody else to come in and get a hold of them. That's the purpose.
Yes, sir, I understand. What I was saying was, I know the city purchased the property and then leased it to the golf course from the get-go, was
Yeah,
what I was,
Yeah.
what I was saying. We bought it as a municipality, the property.
Correct.
One of the things that I want to touch base on is a golf course. When we talk about a carbon footprint of a community, the golf course has typically higher income individuals that come and utilize that, which brings money to the area as well when it comes to retail and other things that happen within the community. So when it comes to the 19,500 and maybe subdividing it and using some of it for commercial or some of it for residential, I don't particularly see any particular issue with that. The only thing I would say is that we should absolutely, through this process, make sure that we keep a designated amount of land specifically for the golf course. So I would have that as a line item, that it always stays, because I think it's an attraction to our community. I think that's what helps people buy a home in a community. I think that's what helps people spend money in a community that are typically, more affluential, that come and play golf. It's not a cheap sport, by the way. So as long as the golf course stays in place, I don't see any particular issue to it from that
I'll tell you,
standpoint.
Mr.
As long as it doesn't go anywhere. It's a staple, and I don't want it to go nowhere.
That's what
all.
I feel like. We've had a guy, like I said, we had a guy that they want to build this big, huge place out there and give us $21 million, but that's not what that's worth to our city and our citizens is an amenity we want to keep. We also can sell, there's little parcels out there like between, I don't know if you ever play golf out there, between 11.
I got a hole in one
I've
out there.
never had one.
Yeah, I'm number 16, by the way.
Between 11 and 13, there's like 18 acres that you can build 80 townhomes on. That would be there, which you could make, just to help pay the cost.
Yeah. I mean, if you leave it up to
Yeah.
contractors and
Yeah.
builders, they'll build on every square
No,
inch
we're
of
not
every
gonna-
piece
no.
of property we
No.
own. And as a community, I just want to make
No, we're
sure
not gonna
that that's
do
an
that.
asset, and
No.
that we, it would be my opinion that we try to somehow secure at least that. Not that it would abrupt any of this or stop any of what's going on.
No, that's all right. We like your comments. I will say that it is got to the point where they don't really care much about doing the, I hate to say this, but maintenance of it and stuff. They're not
Yeah,
really,
we're gonna do it
they're ready to retire.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we could also find other
Yeah.
younger
there's-
bucks out there that
yeah.
are doing the same thing that could give us a great golf course that could increase the fees.
We have one of the best golf course maintenance guys in the state works out there. Carol Heard's husband, who I think they live over in,
He used to run West Orange golf.
he was at West Orange Country Club for 40 years.
Yep. Yes, sir.
He works out there. So you got a guy, huh? Tommy, and he's one of the
Yep.
best in the state.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
sir.
all right,
As long as we keep it, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we keep it if we can. Okay, thank you guys.
all right,
So-
thank you.
I'd like to make the motion to support the money, first out of contingency, and then if Rob feels we need to go into the governmental development, we'll do that, and to hire GAI consultants
I'll second that.
19.5.
19,
19.5.
for the 19.5.
I'll second.
I have a motion to do a, what you call him?
Appraiser.
Appraiser, evaluation of the golf course for 19.5 by Commissioner Grogan, seconded by Commissioner Wilson. I want to,
I would like to make another motion on top of that before we vote,
not a motion, we have to make an amendment.
amendment to that motion.
Okay.
So, that we adjust the motion to state that the funding will come from two different sources as opposed to not necessarily the seller, but maybe another fund that we may have, some other line item that we may have to add to that as opposed to taking all of it from contingency.
Mayor, what I would suggest, if somebody wants to amend the motion, the Development Services did have some money in a line item, so if you say up to 19.5, and we'll use as little of that 19.5 from contingency as possible.
I want to make the amendment saying it comes out of
I already made that motion saying that they could do it out of
development services.
Of governmental
or
leases.
going into the development services.
Development services.
Whatever.
Did you have enough money for the whole thing?
So we won't need to do it.
Okay.
We do, but that's
Okay.
going to take away something else that that's why, I think leaving it open-ended as
Yeah.
proposed is probably a good thing between the two.
Yeah, just leave it
Well,
open.
just so we don't, if it were 10,000 and 10,000,
Right, whatever.
Okay.
'Cause I
Take
know
it from the
they got other things that
$10,000
they
from the
wanna do.
mailers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can take it from the $10,000 mailers.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we can get it from there.
But we don't know where that 10,000
We're halfway there now.
was coming from. We had no idea where that 10,000 was coming from,
Yeah.
for those mailers.
All right, so we got a motion, we got a second. No more discussion, let's vote.
Oh.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next and last property that I will discuss with you this evening is properties owned by the Ocoee Church of Christ, which is located in our downtown at the corner of McKee, at the southeast corner of McKee and Blueford. And we were approached by the church, and they haven't given us a letter or anything like that, but they had mentioned to us that they might be interested in selling the property, and would the city be interested? And just as a frame of reference, this is Blueford. I can't see the label on my glasses.
Oh, is that?
That's Oakland.
And
That's a big piece of property.
See, they own all that
Okay,
land,
I-
the church.
This is the new proposed city hall that we are going to be building, okay? You have Betty J's Florist, that building is owned by the church as well as some other parcels. But they own, the point I want to make to you is they own a significant portion of that block in the middle of our downtown. And with all the goals that we have that we're in the process of implementing for downtown redevelopment, this would be worth considering in terms of what the city could do to help redevelop there and support what's already there. What we would be requesting from you, because this is such a preliminary step, I attended one meeting with them. They expressed an interest in having us appraise some or all of the parcels that they own and come back to them before we could come to any kind of discussion. So we would be asking the commission to, again, authorize funds to hire an appraiser. And you know, tongue in cheek, until Rob cuts it out, I'm going to propose a line item next year for property appraisals, because we've stolen from so many people's budgets this year to pay for all these ad hoc appraisals that we've had to do. Again, that's a symptom of all the good growth that's been happening. It's a tribute to you all that things are going right when you have that many opportunities starting to come up. That's a sign that things are going right, things are healthy. But there's a process, and the first thing that we have to do, and the city attorney can tell you, under the charter for any purchase or sale of real property in the city, we out of our fiduciary responsibility to the citizens, have a professional opinion of what it's worth. And so that's kind of where we would be with this. This is without respect to any proposed plan or anything like that, of that nature, that the city would have. I'm looking for the commission to decide, yes, we want you to proceed forward in getting this appraised and then bring it back, or decide whether you don't want us to do that.
All right, question. They wanted 3 different options, right?
There were 3 different combinations that of properties they owned that they wanted us to look at, and what we would do, and of course Al Butler is a far more eloquent, versed person than I am when it comes to the appraisal methodologies, but we would ask for an appraisal method that allowed an appraisal for each singular parcel and a total price with an appraisal of that nature. So that would accommodate what their desires were, to look at different combinations of parcels.
Commissioner Wilson.
I have a question. You know, I'm more visual when I'm there, I realize it. Is the corner on Lakewood and McKee, is there a house? Or is that one over? Do you know where, as you go down the property, go down McKee Street, and you get to the corner of Lakewood, is that a house I think they own a house there?
They're gonna keep the 2 houses.
They're gonna keep the 2 husses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
One of them's a parsonage.
right, and one is
One's
the,
a preacher's house.
okay.
You don't
No, but there's, his house
Yeah,
on the
there's one
farm.
there.
Good bird. Okay, and there's a sign on that property, am I correct? Is it some historical property? Am I wrong? That there's
No,
some sign
it's
sitting
not.
back there?
There was a sign put there when they were showing different areas that had houses.
Come on
that
now.
used to be historic. One they
Like
tore it down.
Salisbury or something?
Some historic, they tore it down.
I realize that, but I mean, that has no effect on any of that, correct? No,
That
okay.
was Bluford Sims' house.
Sims House, that's right, there's a sign. Okay, but
I touched it.
it's okay. Oh, it's
We're
okay.
having an evening of technical issues.
So what you're looking for is it gonna be two appraisals? Or an appraisal that's broken up into, is it one appraisal with two aspects of it? Is that what you're looking for?
We do one appraisal cut up into pieces.
Yes.
So
It's
the
the
front,
same way we did the little store there on Bluford, South Bluford, and we had the vacant lot next to it. We'd get one appraisal,
Oh,
but they
yeah.
give us a price for each one separate.
okay. Okay.
How much?
Yeah.
George is counting the.
How much where's it coming from?
I could pass that contingency over, you know?
We're both in agreement that 5,000 should cover that.
All right,
Oh,
5,000.
Where's it coming from again?
It's cheaper than 20.
It would
Wherever
be
they can
coming
find
for,
Contingency, we just.
our
said-
recommendation
just
would be that you take that out of contingency, because we're running out of departmental budgets to
Let me ask Rob a question.
take appraisal
Is
dollars
there any
from.
way to find enough money to maybe put another 25 in contingency?
We would have to do a budget amendment. We were talking about possibly doing one in March or April if there was anything else we needed. I mean, we can do a budget amendment at any time. It's just the advertising cost to do that and a public hearing and
We need to, we can.
ordinance. So we can put additional money in the contingency account. It's just, it's not something you can just authorize at a meeting, though. We have to actually advertise and do an ordinance.
All right.
I've seen contingency fund, I mean, we had one meeting, contingency fund dropped by half. One
That's why it's
meeting.
there.
It's
Contingencies.
last year.
Any more comments?
no, but I'll make the motion.
How much did he say?
5,000.
I'll be happy to make the motion
All right, make a motion.
to approve up to 5,000, is that the best way to put it?
Yes, ma'am.
Up to 5,000 for appraisal for the property?
Out of
Out of contingency for the property from the,
Church of Christ.
Church of Christ.
All right.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson for the appraisal price up to $5,000, seconded by Commissioner Forster. No more comments, let's vote. Motion carries unanimously.
Is that it?
One more.
Item 17, Mayor and Commissioners. This last item is a very small, simple item for you. But it's again, a product of economic development that's happening in the city associated with our, in this case, our downtown redevelopment area and implementation of the downtown master plan. During August, you all recall there being discussion and there being some general guidance to look at this property that we own at 2 North Bluford as a bed and breakfast idea. And the direction was to have Dr. Kathleen Crown, who had come and spoken to the commission, take someone over and take a look at it, whether or not that structure that we own could even be feasible. And came back in October, and the commission decided to do some minor repairs. And we've come to a place where we're getting lots of ideas thrown to us by developers and entrepreneurs and real estate agents and things. There are some pretty big things that we could accomplish on that property. And because of the interaction with the commission during those times, it's most appropriate that in order to allow us to pursue some bigger, more grandiose ideas, before we do that and go down that path, you all would need to rescind just rescind your ideas of having a bed and breakfast on that site using that house. And of course, that house really would be intended to be demolished by the city. That was our intention when we acquired it. As from a staff standpoint, we've taken a look at it. It's being used as a temporary construction office for Ulrich Construction, who is doing a lot of the construction in our downtown master plan. And they're probably going to be in there till roughly the end of March. And we would, if the commission decides to rescind interest in the bed and breakfast proposal made by Dr. Crown, we would recommend that you authorize us to demolish that house as well.
Does Dr. Crown still have an interest in creating the bed and breakfast? Does she still have an interest in doing so?
The
I was gonna ask, did she ever come back? She hadn't come back, I think the call.
She was directed in October to come back, and she was authorized to have a construction expert go through the house with her, and we have not heard back from her. And, you know, I know there are members on the board that probably know her and might be able to speak, but we have not heard from her.
I heard from Craig or somebody that the valuation probably of what would happen there would be $4 to $5 million of this project that they're talking about.
Well, she's had, what, 4 months to
Yeah,
come up with a plan?
yeah. I think the place is worse than what we thought it was.
They'd have to rebuild.
We've offered, Rob did say that we could approve to give the house, if she wanted the house anyway, to move it to another lot somewhere, we could do that. But I tell you, I don't know if it'd stay apart.
Stay together, just try to move it.
Yeah, I don't know if it would stay together, but we did, I think Rob did say, I'm not speaking for it, but I think we can all have to vote on it.
I think it says in here, or move it.
Yeah,
But
if
we
she wanted it, they, you know, she could move it,
She could move it
yeah.
at her expense.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't, it's, like I said, I don't know if it would stay together. I hate to say that, but
I'd be,
it would probably not. And I liked the idea before, but this is a part of the city that you guys have got to decide too. I think those two corners really set off the downtown, especially with City Hall being right there, with what I know they're gonna plan there. And I think Craig and him probably can show you what the general idea of what they wanna do. So,
I think we've given
Yeah.
4 months or 5
Yeah.
months to the
That's
discussion
enough
time.
time.
And if we don't have any contact, I think we have to move on with what's best for the city.
Absolutely.
yeah, I agree.
I'd like to make that motion to go ahead and rescind what we've done with Dr. Crown, and however, allow her the option, if she wants to, before we have a demolished date, if she wants to have that building moved, that we allow her we give her the building.
In a reasonable,
Yeah, I second that.
well, how about
No,
with the,
wait,
Motion
she'll
made
have
by-
a demolished date, and she's gotta have it gone by that date, or it goes down.
Motion made by Commissioner,
Is that?
Part of the recommendation was
yeah,
authorize funds to
Right.
demolish if she doesn't want to move it
Yeah.
to a property.
yeah.
Right.
So, motion made by Commissioner Grogan. You wanna read the
Wait a
motion?
minute, how much are we talking again?
I know what I
How
want.
much more we
All right,
talking?
here's the deal.
You look like
Motion
you
made by
said,
Commissioner Grogan to rescind the,
Rescind, demolish, or
and
have her
then
move it.
demolish, and cover the demolition and work the deal out with the other.
Motion to direct staff to demolish the building if Dr. Crown does not remove it at her expense by,
March 31st? Oh, no, actually, no, it would have to be past that, because Ulrich's going to be
They
there.
wanna stay there till March,
So Ulrich's
right?
going to be there, so it would be.
31st to give her the first week,
When are they leaving?
March 31st.
so give her the first week of
June
April.
the first.
Okay.
yeah, that'd be,
Say June the first.
June?
you good
That's
with that?
fine, I'm good with that.
A motion, all right, second by Commissioner Oliver. Did you second that motion?
I just had to know where it was coming from. Yeah, I second the motion, yes.
Commissioner Oliver
This is
seconded.
downtown master development plan.
Commissioner Oliver seconded that motion.
I think that comes out of a different fund,
It does,
correct?
downtown
Thank
development
you.
master plan, yeah.
Yes.
All right, no more discussion, let's vote.
June 1st?
June 1st.
Okay,
Good.
good.
All right, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Craig.
Any more, Craig?
That's it.
Any more staff?
No, sir.
All right, comments from commissioners. Commissioner Grogan.
Everybody, please, March 12th, the election for District 1 seat, and I hope everybody in the district gets out to vote. That's all I got.
Commissioner Wilson?
Really want to go to me because I've got a few things here. One thing is, please don't forget the Women's Club. The mayor already mentioned the Women's Club is having the political forum on February 13th at 6:30 here in the chambers, and it will be televised. I'm going to start backwards because I'm going to get to my contingency question at the end, so George, so we can figure out how much is left. The MVP grant, you know, we tabled that during our budget time because we wanted to go back and evaluate. And I would like to go ahead and, I guess, maybe staff could poll us individually, if that's allowed, of some things that we want to see in the MVP grant, and have we come back with a plan, because I'm getting asked by residents in different neighborhoods if we're going to have it again. And I know the money is funded, maybe they can't poll us, but we can discuss it, or put it on the next agenda, for us to discuss it, because it is funded. Don't tell George, because he might try to pull that money into the contingency, but but we want to make some decisions on that, and I think we need to go ahead at this point.
I don't have a problem with that, but I want us to make sure we check the rules, redo the rules, maybe point some new people to it.
Well, see, and that's what
Yeah.
I think, I'd like to see if we can put that on the agenda to discuss it another night.
Yeah.
Or,
We'll do that.
again, I don't know if you're allowed to poll us, to ask us if our opinions individually
No, we don't
before
poll you,
that.
but
Okay.
we can give you the presentation.
Okay, so some changes. Okay, the next thing is, I know it was up here, but the Spring Fling is going to be on March the 9th from 10 to 2, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in Bilbrey's Park. It's going to have lots of fun. It's geared toward mostly children and families, but mostly towards children. I see Dorcas out there shaking her head. It's a fun time. Everything is free, hot dogs, drinks. We want you to come learn something, have fun, and we'll have different participants. The different departments in the city will be there to educate us as to what they do, and it's going to be a fun time. So please come down, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on March the 9th. Now,
You're bringing back golfing?
no golfing, no, don't even bring that up. This is our 15th year, and I laugh because we started this, most of us are all together for the last 15 years who've worked to put this on with the different departments, and we're excited to do it. We're on the same board.
When we had that going.
So we're excited to be realizing it's been 15 years that we've been doing this, so it's a fun time. The other item I have to talk about, there's three clubs in town, the Ocoee Rotary, the Ocoee Women's Club, and the Ocoee Lions Club. And we have decided to get together as a group and put on a shredding program where you can shred documents. And we're gonna go ahead, it's called Shred to Protect. Mike, got that right? I have Charlie in the back, because we're working with the police department. And again, fraud prevention, and also with the three clubs putting this together, we have hired a company that will bring in 2 trucks that will shred documents that people bring to a specific location. We're looking to do this at the police department, so we can partner with the police department. Charlie, I know, can speak on that, but we've hired the trucks for 6 hours. Right now, we have four folks that are gonna support this, and I was wondering if the city wanted to be involved in this and also to support the program. We have 2 hours that are remaining that have not been spoken for, and what we're paying is $250 an hour for these trucks to come in. They shred the documents right in front of you. I know I can't bring this up or vote on it, but I didn't know if the city wanted to sponsor any of the time for that. It's something that's gonna be open to all the residents. They come down, the first container they bring, the first box is no
Free.
charge.
Yep.
But we are asking a suggested donation for additional boxes at $5. They're bankers' boxes. I know that a lot of our folks in town have told me they have documents sitting in their house that they don't want to just throw in the trash. They want to shred. And so we're thinking this could be a community service. So I'm asking if anyone's it's a commission except for me. is interested in, should I say, sponsoring this with us, with the 3 clubs. I cannot vote on it because I am a member of 2 of the clubs. And so I'm just bringing this up to the commission if they're interested in sponsoring any of the hours that are remaining to have this. It will happen at the police department. We would ask that the road be partially closed, so we could bring these 2 large trucks in.
You know where that come from?
I'm not. I'm just asking if the commission has any interest in sponsoring that. It would be, I mean, it's something that's citywide, the residents, all the residents would benefit from this if they have documents in their home that they need to get rid of. And again, the nice thing is it's shredded on site.
I've participated in programs like that, and they are great for the community at large. I've actually worked with several financial organizations that have offered that to their customers, and it is an excellent way to I guess, for people to take the documents, to protect the documents, and get rid of them properly, as opposed to putting them into a trash bin. So I think it's a great program.
The reason I'm here, I am a member of Rotary, a club member, but as the police department, we're going to do a identity theft prevention timeframe through the month of March, and we're going to do a lot of posting on our Facebook page and do a program that day to talk about the importance of getting rid of your documents and doing a fraud and ID theft prevention. And so we are hosting it, and the clubs are doing the. Yes, sir.
Just a general question, how about taking it out of forfeiture funds?
It may not fit forfeiture, but I was going to suggest that, I mean, it's a small amount of money. It is one of our community affairs programs. It could come out of our budget if it's a community affairs program, so.
It's fine with me.
If that's, we didn't.
I think the other part that, Commissioner, you asked me to remind you on too, that you wanted to get the consensus on was, besides just if there's any monetary buy-in from the city, would be, so we don't have to bring this back again as a special event permit, if you would just approve this special event, the city being part of it. And if they need to close down a lane or, need to close down the road if there's too many people, Ocoee Commerce Parkway.
We're going to use Ocoee.
So we don't have to bring that back again at some point in the future.
And it's from 9 to 12 in the morning, so the only businesses that are on there are, I think, doctor's offices.
The doctor's
right?
office,
So
correct.
they're normally closed, so. It's March the 30th, it's a Saturday.
Saturday.
All right, so what do you want to do? I mean,
So I guess if, Charlie, you have the money,
need a
the request
consensus on
is,
that, or-
the consensus is really just to.
If consensus is you wish that to be part of our program, then
Yeah.
I'll use our budget.
And to approve the street closing of 1 lane or 2 lanes if needed on a special event permit. Yeah.
Is that for 2 hours?
All right,
We'll,
No, the 2 hours of the remaining funding.
yeah, so $250 or $500? Up to $500, let's do that, okay. And we'll still try to find sponsors, but.
Yeah.
all right. So
Because we could put we could put the city emblem on the flyer that says.
It's.
City logo, yeah. It's a normal community event for us, so,
It's good, yeah.
okay.
A consensus, we got a consensus.
Do you have the road closure?
Yeah, he said that too.
You're good for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Any more, Commissioner Wilson?
No, I don't believe that was it, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Firstman.
Have we made any progress on determining the number of furloughed employees?
I don't, there's been no requests. I don't know if at the last meeting we actually, it was directed to find if people have made that request. I'd have to ask Craig, because I'm not sure exactly what the request was. But I know Kathy's usually not shy if that issue comes up and people ask for her to come up and talk to me about it, and she's not done that.
Okay, that's fine, it's over
And,
now,
and
it's kind of
technically,
thing
if
in the
that
past.
request came in, even before that issue came up, we would probably give them some leeway.
Yeah, we may have to deal with it again, so
Right.
we'll look into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Oliver.
Okay, I am pleased to announce that we have received lots of inquiries about the Ocoee Youth Council. It's come from several high schools in the area from West Orange, Waukeeva, Ocoee, and a private schools as well. And we've actually got some of the kids have already started filling out applications for the program. And some of you see sitting out in the audience have been patiently waiting to find out what's going to happen with this program and how they will apply for the program. So we have Ms. Dillard here who would actually agree to help us to head the program up. And she's here in case you guys have any questions about, you know, how this is going to go as far as how do we solicit kids to participate and what the process has been put in place thus far.
Yeah, that's what I got a couple of questions. Why don't you come up here to the podium? So there's different things, requirements we talked about. So one of the things is, what is the time frame for your hours, Dorcas? Ms. Dillard, I'm sorry, Ms. Dillard.
Okay.
What is your time frame for hours working?
Okay,
I mean,
so I think.
we're giving you
okay,
$10,000,
so let me
but is it up?
Okay,
What's
so
the
let me
time
see, I
frame?
think I said about 14 hours a month. I think that's where it was. I'd have to get my little, if you want me to tell you exactly. I put it all in writing, so.
So 14 hours a month, 10,000 a year, that's, okay.
Correct.
All right, so the other thing is, before,
14 to 19,
if we finish the vote on this, Rob, because I'm not in favor, I'm gonna tell you up front, I'm not in favor of Valencia picking the students.
Yeah.
Going through the students.
Mayor, the way it's written, some commissioners, if you need to express what you'd like to do with
Yeah,
Dorcas
that's what we
or with the board itself once it's constituted, but they, you know, in the resolution, it reserves them the right to ask for civic or educational organizations to help them do the screening. If you have the ones that you would like to appoint, I just have that discussion with them.
Also, I know that, like I said, that's, the thing about it is when we find the things that I'd like to be able for us to look at the applicants also.
you'd like to look at the applicants?
Yes.
Okay. And how would you?
Well, I'd like us to be able to put our opinion in on the applicants.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't want the bunch to be the one that points out and says, here, who's we picking? These are the ones we're picking. I want it to be where it comes back to us to do that.
I think instead of applicants, we should look at the applications.
Well, I know that, but
I mean, I'm sorry, I just wanted to.
I want it to be our people. If we haven't voted, did we vote you on there as the board representative yet?
Yeah.
We did?
We've got
I wouldn't take any part in the actual
item 10.
choosing. I would
No.
recuse myself from that part.
Yeah.
I'll leave that up, if it comes to the commission to make the recommendations as to who
I'd
they
like
would like
for
to
us to
choose,
be able to be
I would
part of
recuse
that.
myself from
Somebody
that
up there.
part.
Okay, so.
I would like to be one of the ones on that committee that selects and looks.
that-
If the
I don't see a problem
If the
with
commission
that.
don't have no problem.
Don't let the rest of the commission be the
Yep.
members.
I think what it says is the initial members of the OYC shall be appointed by the city commission after considering recommendations from the OYC coordinator. Thereafter, new members shall be appointed by majority vote of the city commission upon the request of the OYC in the event that membership falls below the minimum number required. So I think it all comes to us, right?
It comes back to the commission.
Okay, I didn't think Valencia was in there, was it?
Yeah, Valencia is because.
It
It is?
But
It doesn't specifically reference Valencia, it references educational or civic institutions that the board may utilize.
I don't know why I didn't
Right.
see Valencia.
And the
I
only
don't have a problem, I love everything about helping the youth, but I'd like to be one of us up here to be one of the ones that review and look at it.
I don't have a problem with that.
And who when it gets picked, be in that group when you pick them, because it's gonna be what, once a year? Are they in for
Well,
a year?
for 1 year. And I think that shows that the leadership is willing to actually be a part of it.
Get involved.
You're actually taking ownership
Yes.
of it. So again, that's a great idea as well.
If it's okay.
Show
with the commission.
commitment.
I'd like to be part of that selection.
Just as we move forward, the only thing that I would say is if we're able to, if I give you the applications to review, that in a timely manner, we're able to get through it and be able to appoint the students in a timely manner. That would be my.
It has to be fairly divided between all three high schools.
And that's what, that is our, that's my hope. But I'm gonna tell you honestly, right now, I have almost all Ocoee High School students that have
I know,
applied.
but we
So-
need to go to, I'll personally go to the high schools and ask the principals to make sure we put that out. I want
Right, and they all, and
I know,
honestly,
I'm just saying,
Right.
I've had other people ask me already, but I'd say West Orange, Ocoee, and you gotta say Wekiva.
I said all
Yeah,
three.
okay.
So I've already
know.
emailed every single one of the principals. I talked to Brewster, I talked to Michelle over at Wekiva, and then Ocoee, of course, because all of our representatives today just happen to be Ocoee from Ocoee. So the word is
I
out.
know that, but I do, I don't, whatever the rest wanna do, but I'm telling you, I want it divided with all the high schools, cause I don't want them coming back and saying you're not doing anything. They seem to forget West Orange, and, all of his area is West Orange.
Yeah, I asked all three. So Mr. Brewster, he knows. I've
Mr.
already
Armbruster's not out there, he's at VOTEC.
Yeah.
He's
But
not
he
at West
get,
Orange.
okay, but I did send it to
Yeah.
him
No,
also,
he's
so he
not at
understands.
West Orange.
I had a conversation with our school board member, Melissa Bird.
Yes,
Yeah.
And I actually do have a meeting coming up with her about this, and I can make sure that she speaks to those principals to get applications from those additional high schools.
What about kids that are homeschooled and kids that live in
Yeah.
Ocoee that go to Hope, like say Hope or?
Hope.
they go
There's
to-
a, if they're
Legacy,
homeschooled,
excuse me.
there is a mechanism in place where they actually do have a connection to the local high school. So they do, they have testing as well as,
Legacy's the high school,
extracurricular activities as well.
which is true, Legacy's also.
Right, and the way it's set up is any student resident that lives here in Ocoee would be eligible. So even if they didn't go to those three schools, they would be eligible
But,
to apply.
like I said, if it's okay with the commission, I'd like to be on that selection.
I'm impressed that we have the students here and you stayed the whole night.
I
mean, I'm
know.
impressed with that.
I'm already impressed.
I mean, I am. It's
And they haven't even
8:40.
completed their
We're only gonna put
applications
10,
yet,
right?
so.
They stuck with us the whole
9 to
night.
15.
9 to 15, yeah.
9 to 15.
They,
Okay, so was there something else, Mayor, that you
No,
said
I'm
that was
just
the
saying,
main
I'm-
thing?
Mayor, just to be clear, the city commission appoints all of them on it. So there's a recommendation of who's coming.
Yeah,
You're gonna get all of the applications, and you're the one, the city commission is the one who selects the members.
That is not what they were talking about.
no, but that's what's here. That's what we approved on item 10.
Yeah, okay, so
That's
we're
what-
gonna bring them to us, and we go through them and approve who we pick.
Okay, so let me just get an understanding. Am I gonna be part of that process, or are you all gonna
You
do?
can
You're
bring
bringing a recommendation.
Okay.
Dorcas, get with me because we have to have you fill out some paperwork too, so just
Do what?
get with me
Let's
before
do-
the end
sure.
of it.
Okay, thank you, Ross.
We'll make sure we do it right.
So you're gonna bring us the applications, and we're gonna go through them
Okay,
and try to,
okay.
which I think 9 to 15, we got $10,000, right?
Yeah.
You have to
And-
manage
Yes.
that.
Yeah, and finally, in addition to that, there are additional outside sources that will be willing to put in additional monies
yeah,
for the
good.
program to cover uniforms, trips, or anything that, in incidentals that they may
Yeah.
need to run the program.
Does this fit into the Florida League of Cities youth initiatives that they have? You know what
Yes.
I'm talking about when the kids come to our conference and they?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, so
Yes,
it's
I've
the
already,
same.
we've had conversation with them this past week as well.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so already working with that coordinator that coordinates that program through the Florida.
Florida League of Cities,
Yes.
okay, good.
Yep, so. Anything else?
Well, let's get it clear before we
Okay.
do this, because I don't want it misunderstood.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we look at the apps, not all of them. If you get 20, we want to see 20.
Okay,
And we can pick
that's
from the 20 who they are.
Okay, and then I will, if we got 20, I'd give my recommendations on what
You-
15
Yeah,
that okay,
but we want to see all 20.
I have no problem with that.
I mean, it's like, and I would not believe that none of the schools wouldn't want to participate. I would think they all.
And just think, they could come do spring fling in future years.
I know, you know, I
Now, are they-
thought about that. A whole lot of stuff I have planned for them, they don't know it.
They're gonna volunteer. Yeah, okay, no, that's.
Is that good?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you.
all right.
We want a picture with everybody now, our potential candidates.
Well, we don't know yet.
Well, she wants a picture with us potential candidates. We love our residents.
Did you finish, did you have your time yet?
Yep, that was it. Done.
Oh, okay. All right. Meeting adjourned.